But if you're really into TED Talks and you're really into food, which I'm thinking you are, and that's why you're here tonight, we are hosting another event on March 1st. It's a TEDx event that's held in Manhattan every year, and the theme of it is changing the way we eat. And it'll be a live webcast that's going on all day, 10:30 to 5. We have a schedule up on our website, so pick up a card and look at the website if you haven't seen it yet. And there's speakers from across the country talking on a wide range of topics: writers, activists, chefs, a whole range of folks. It'll be interspersed with a few local talks by local people as well, and we'll be coming up here for some lunch provided by local restaurants with some seasonal food. But the event itself it's a really interesting focus on the TED Talks. But I do want to invite our panelists to come up as I fill in some space as they come forward. We've got 3 folks here. You'll notice the art on the wall is also timed with a purpose to be here for this event, but also for the event on March 1st. This is from a show called The Lexicon of Sustainability. The focus of the organization is to get us kind of all speaking the same language when we're talking about sustainability. What does sustainability mean? What do terms like grass-fed, backyard pollinators, urban farmers, farm to table, what do these phrases mean? What are these concepts all about? And so their first exhibit, which we were lucky enough to get one of the limited copies of, is on food and farming in America. So I encourage you to browse around and read and engage with the posters. They'll be up here for the next few weeks. But this is their first sort of, hey, it's open night. So that, take a look at that. Also, we have food at the back behind there. That's for us. I know it's over there. But help yourself when they're done talking, if you haven't already. So you can sit up here because you will need to use the mic, so you can sneak around behind me, that's okay. One thing I did want to mention that I was struck by Pam Warhurst's talk when she said that how they got everything started was they were sitting around a kitchen table and got to talking about these concepts and decided to, do something, and they wouldn't need a plan or a grant or money or whatever. A similar story here locally, they're not on the panel tonight, but sitting around actually my kitchen table about 5 years ago, we decided we needed a local food co-op in our community, and that opens this week as a store. So thank you. Yes, it's very exciting. And it's been a long time coming, so drop in to 123 Hill Street and check out the Purple Porch Co-op. It opens this week, but it started conversations around a kitchen table. I'm deciding how we can make changes and do things in a new way. But I want to introduce our panelists because I thought I wanted these 3 folks in particular because they really, when I listen to these talks, they're the people that came to mind. When I think about infusing beauty in our surroundings and making our neighborhoods more beautiful and more edible, I think of the Coman family and what they're doing in Monroe Park with their garden and the way that they just live their lives. When I think about encouraging all of us to eat and to freely pick food that's grown as many places as possible, and especially engaging youth in that, I think of Unity Gardens. And when I think about having a more edible landscape in our area, I think of this fairly newly formed-ish group resource called Eat Wild. So I'll let Joshua Miller from Eat Wild start the conversation. They're going to share a little bit about how they're doing, what these folks are doing, and how you can learn more and get involved. So.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here. My name is Joshua Murray. I am the sole admin right now of the Facebook group Eat Wild. We are centered only on Facebook right now. It's our main forum. It's the main way that I can connect to people that are all over my area right now in my busy schedule. And it's the easiest tool that I have to pass on the kind of education that I do. We specialize in wild edibles, things that grow everywhere. I watch these videos. I got to tell you right now, I'm a little flustered because every time I watch Ron Finley, he speaks right to me. Ron Finley is kind of one of my hometown heroes. South Central Los Angeles is only about an hour drive from where I'm from in California. And so it's kind of interesting to see that going on over there. Here at home, we are just starting to kind of get involved with the community. We're a fairly new group. We're just getting involved with the community. We're trying to find ways to fit in. We're seeking ways to use what's sitting in our landscape. I watch these talks and they're talking about creating gardens and edible landscapes. And what I do is more education that the garden is already here. The garden's been here for longer than we've been here. It'll grow without us. It takes no work. All it takes is education, and that's my job. I come and I teach people how to find the things in their neighborhood that are free and edible and basically just slip in between the cracks because of a lack of knowledge and just things that are falling out of common use. I have all kinds of food sources. There's medicines out there. I just have to know where to look for it. I do this for my kids. You know, I see what he's talking about in Ron Finley's video about Americans living in a food desert and about how available resources are such a scarcity in some places. And it's my way of thinking is very different than that because I see my resources everywhere. Where he sees his vacant lots, that's where I have my gardens. And I didn't grow them, but they've already been there. They've always been there. Sorry. Part of what he was, or part of what Pam Warhurst was also getting at, is this is an idea it's free. It doesn't take anything other than just willpower and you know, the resources that are available already around us all the time. Anybody can do this. I can teach anybody to do it. It's gotten me through periods of unemployment, you know, like not only is the food not available sometimes, but sometimes the food's not affordable. In what Ron Finley was saying about how growing your own food is like printing your own money, that creates an entirely new form of currency, which creates almost a new sort of economy. And there's no unit of, you know, measurement for free. It's nothing and it's everything at the same time. I mean, you can go and, I've lived off of it, I still live off of it. It's very easy to do. And I would encourage anybody that was interested to come and take a look at what we're doing. We're going to be doing a lot more this year out publicly. We're going to be doing some get-togethers and things in some open public spaces. And we're going to be trying to participate in some more community events. And we're even going to try and turn it around and give back to the community this year from the harvest that is pretty much neglected around here in town. We're going to try and introduce some new things to the community. I see a lot of the mission statement of the Unity Gardens, especially, you know, my friends at the Unity Gardens, like reflected in these two TED Talks. And I feel like kind of the outsider at this because I'm like completely on the outside of that. Like I said, I have my garden where there is no garden. This is, excuse me. I guess I could say that the education is priceless, but it's something that you have to hang on to, and it's something that I feel like it's my job to help keep alive for everybody. You know, it's a resource that when you have nothing, you can still have something, and even if that is just something as simple as food on the table, or if it's, you know, for those of us that choose to, we've branched out into cultivation of wild edibles now. We're approaching that maybe as a new, you know, area of expansion for the group, and that can provide even bigger capacity to feed, you know, the people that are around us, and put something really interesting on the plate, you know, something that you wouldn't get anywhere else. And so we're kind of excited, and we're hoping to like raise the awareness in town that people have just an infinite number of resources at their disposal, really. I'm supposing that most people aren't super familiar with most of the things that I deal with on a daily basis as far as wild edibles and plants. And probably most of you wouldn't have a general use for a lot of them, but I do. I'm also yeah, actually I think I'm done. Would you like to take over? Thank you, guys.
You're a chef.
I am a chef.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I pride myself by putting something different on the plate.
Yeah, and the banquets you've done and stuff look great. I'm not a chef, not at all. I'm Sara from Unity Gardens, and so with Unity Gardens we want to make food available to everyone, healthy food. So we're growing food, growing health, growing community, and most importantly, growing each other. But we can't do it alone, and we've never done it alone. People like Josh help connect those dots. I always have a joke that I tell people, I grow food and I eat food, but something magical has to happen in between. And you're, a big piece of that, and your education with that, it's really impressive. I have talked to Pam before. She actually, I don't know if you guys noticed on the dots, like on the world, we're one of those dots. So that's pretty exciting. She put us on her website a few years back. And I like what we saw today because I think it's symbolic of what we all need to do. Everyone knows right now that we have a crisis. We have a food crisis, a health crisis, and I'm a nurse. So my first foray into all of this was to give people of no means access to healthy food. It's hard to teach people about how to protect their health, how to monitor their salt level or their sugar levels when they don't have access to healthy food. And as my nursing students would be working with people at Broadway or Our Lady of the Road or Hope Ministries and teaching them, like, oh, it's not good to smoke and oh, you need to not have salt, and yet they're sitting there eating corn dogs for breakfast. The irony hit me. And so as a third generation gardener, we garden so much that we don't even clean the house, we clean the yard when we're expecting company. It occurred to me, why don't I just grow a garden? And I thought about that idea, but really who spurred that on, who encouraged and empowered me, were the street homeless. Many of the folks who don't have empowerment themselves were the people that their response and their encouragement to me is what gave me the courage to take that next step and make a garden where anyone could grow healthy food. See, other people thought it was a bad idea. They're like, well, you can't go in those neighborhoods or 3 blocks south of the jail and make a garden. People hurt you. I'm like, well, I got Bluetooth, I think I'll be okay. And others were like, well, they'll steal your food. I'm like, well, I think that's success. And so people got used to the idea. And 5 years or 4.5 years later now, no one questions that here in our area. And so as I look at the TED Talks and think about what their message is, I think, isn't it cool? They're right here in Michiana. We're leaders in that. And we're leaders in that not because of me, but because of all of you. Because of this whole community, because of people like Josh or people like Grace who have spearheaded this. Grace was one of the seed starters at our very first year. This is truly a team effort. So in growing food, that's great. We've all done something with that. Feeding the hungry, taking back control of our own health. In growing our own health, we avoid paying for each other's strokes or the loss of productivity in our community as we don't live longer and get the benefit of age. We're growing community, though, as we create venues where all sorts of people come together, not just South Los Angeles folks, not just wealthy folks, at a organic store, but all those people together, where neighbors start getting to know one another, where people learn how to interact with their wild landscape in ways that make this food accessible to everyone. And then in doing that, I love what was the theme maybe today. Investing in kindness, as Pam would say. Totally inclusive. If you eat, you're in. I love that. Paying it forward, that's obviously a great concept. And how Ron said, growing a new path for each other. I think of all the concepts that we look at with all three of you great speakers, is growing each other. Really the only crop that will pay us back. Great.
Hi, I'm Grace. I helped start the Unity Garden in Monroe Park with my family. It was about 4 years ago when we did that in the hopes that people would be able to pick free food, free healthy food, and they could learn how to garden garden themselves. We hope that they would learn where their food comes from and how to grow it, showing them that gardening was not only easy, but also can be interesting, educational, and fun. Even when gardening was hard, you could still find joy when you see what you get out of it. The neighborhood that my family lives in is not the neighborhood you would think. There are lots of drugs, single parents, poverty, unhealthy people. We need to do something that would bring the people together as a community. So we planted a garden, Unity Gardens. Everybody could pitch in a little and get a lot out of it. So when we started working in the garden in the springtime, people were interested. They would walk by, ask what we were doing, either keep walking, but most of them come back with a pair of garden gloves or a shovel or some seeds they wanted to plant. During the year, there were picnics, block parties, movie nights held by the garden. Before we planted the Unity Garden in Monroe Park, people were getting cheap, unhealthy food, not good for them, at fast food stores or restaurants. Now that we have the garden, people pick from it, and they're learning how their food is grown and where it's coming from. So it's a plus. It's important. This is important because if they are a part of something important, like growing their own food, they might feel more confident, and they have power to make other changes in life positive. We hope to keep running this year after year in hopes that more and more people will continue to use it and maybe plant more gardens around the world. Let's get our hands dirty and garden. The garden is a scene of art that people can't do anything but enjoy.
Okay, so hopefully you're very intrigued and have questions. I know I do, but if you have a question for any of our panelists, they've been told they're supposed to answer, and I'm sure they'd be happy to. So, any questions or comments, or want to find out more? Yes.
I'd like to know some examples of some edible foods that maybe your top 2 or 3 that most of us just have no idea are around.
My favorite? Boy, I don't know. I keep trying new stuff every year, and I like more stuff. I'm big on wild mushrooms right now. I would venture to say that between my father and who taught me pretty much everything that I know about this, other than what I've taught myself in the couple of years that I've been doing this, between my father and my brother and myself, we're probably 3 of the best mushroom hunters I've ever met. I'm pretty lucky for that. There's a lot more out there than just the morels in the spring, and they're a lot easier to get to. Besides that, I would also say that some of my favorites will be a lot of wild greens that are out here. There's a lot of just lawn plants that people don't realize, just lawn, pasture, meadow plants people can eat and they don't realize. And my third favorite, would probably be, well, you got me. There's so many.
Crab apples.
It could be the crab apples this year. I don't know, it's so tough to pick. I actually sat down the other day and I tried to list all the things that I've been using over the last year that I picked on. I have about a 1 to 2 mile radius, I would say, around my neighborhood that I use as my personal forage and wild edible grounds. And I listed so many items on this piece of paper that I covered it on both sides in 3 columns. So picking 3 things out of that would be pretty difficult for me.
So I'm going to follow that up with a more pointed thought. So what have you eaten lately that you have foraged? Because, well, I'm on the Facebook group, and
Well,
he's
this
always
is-
posting I did this with the venison roadkill I found, whatever it is. And I'm like, wow, that's
Well,
really great.
I haven't built that far down yet.
So I exaggerated a little bit. But you're always putting up some interesting things. So what have you eaten lately?
Well,
that
honestly,
you've
as a
foraged?
chef, I'm always trying to find ways to use wild ingredients to add to or varied, like traditional dishes and things like that. The other day I used venison to make traditional German sauerbraten, and that was excellent. Tonight my family was enjoying chicken salad sandwiches with dehydrated mulberries that I had put up earlier in the year and black walnuts that we had shelled ourselves, and that was excellent. I mean, I'm always just looking, every day, it's my point every day to either do something as far as the forage, you know, like do some work outside, or at least to do the fun part and eat. So every day my family gets to try me experimenting with something new from outdoors.
Other questions? Yeah.
Again, Josh?
Yes.
Our neighborhood has a lot of mulberry trees, and there's tons around. That's one of our favorite things. But could I like hire you to come to my neighborhood? And I homeschool my kids and other kids, and I'm sure some of my neighbors too would be interested. Would you ever do that kind of thing? Like come scope out our area and walk us through?
You don't have to pay me. I do it for free, just for the teaching and just for the teaching and get together experience. I do that already. So we always are looking for new places to go and do things like that. You know, if your neighborhood really is full of say mulberry trees, or or you have a wealth of some other variation of wild plants somewhere in your neighborhood that you know of, and there's enough to share, then we're always looking to get other people in on it and share the bounty.
Yeah, like empty lots might have weeds that we could eat.
Exactly.
Like that. I mean,
That's like I said, the vacant lots are all here in town. South Bend is, everybody knows South Bend's got a lot of parts of town that are kind of deteriorating and crumbling, and there are vacant lots everywhere. And that's like I said, those become quickly, when they get overgrown, those become my garden that tends itself,
I'll
There
talk
it
to
is.
you later then.
Got a question for Josh. What is a good resource for unusual edible plants for our area? Aside from
My favorite actually is the Peterson's Field Guide to Edible Wild Plants in North America. But there are a lot of books on the subject. Google is wonderful.
oh, sure.
I don't know who would answer this, but what would be a good go-to place for, like, if you wanted to start a school program where you had a garden? Is there any kind of good information that you can suggest?
I could start you off there. You mean like locally to start a school garden?
Correct.
We have quite a few. I think there's 12 Unity Gardens on site at different schools. Schools are challenged because of the season here. And so there's a lot of things that we recommend in terms of accessibility when you're doing a garden at school that we've not found in books. A lot of the books that have to do with school gardens have to do with other climates that don't have some of our same challenges. But there are ways to grow seasonally where kids can enjoy the harvest. So two principles we like to use is one, real integration into the curriculum, not just pretend integration.
Yeah.
That's a huge concept. And the second one is multiple layers of involvement. Schools usually are not geared towards playing well with others anymore. So we have to really encourage neighborhood, church, business, and school involvement so that if the school is out of session, there still are, it's just like building resiliency through diversity. A lot of hands makes short work. So those would be the two big principles. We're happy with helping guide and answer questions, and of course then school curriculums, and we have a kids club we've done for 3 years now, and we do a junior master gardener class during the winter. So we have a huge educational curriculum, and we're happy to share ideas, etc. But there's a lot out there on Google too, or anything else.
Okay.
Did that answer pretty well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a question for Grace. So the garden in their neighborhood, I remember when it first got put in, and it was so small. They were really scared to make it too big because it was a new thing they were trying in the garden. So, but it's much bigger now. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how and why it's grown.
It's like just plowing up more.
We made it bigger. Well, the first year, yeah, of course we were scared because we didn't know how many people would be interested in this garden, and it turned out that year was great. I mean, everybody came and picked and helped. So we all decided to just make that one a little bit bigger, and then the next year we made another garden, a whole other garden. That's probably why we made it bigger, obviously, just because more people got into it. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
And Josh, could you say more about fallen fruit and what you do with that?
We have a website that we sort of partnered with at Eat Wild. They're called fallingfruit.org, and basically what it is, it's an entire global map. You can zoom down at any point on the globe, and what it is it's a resource for people like myself who are more of the guides, or say the landowners, people that have things like mulberry trees or any kind of wild edibles at all, anything. There's listings for unity gardens, community gardens, anything that people can go to and eat for free. It's a place where we can map those, like down to specific locations, on a street corner, in a backyard, in a border property. I mean, you can find the tree on the satellite picture and mark it and label it. And we're actually in the process right now with fallingfruit.org. Myself and the two creators of the website have been talking back and forth about changing the way that the map presents itself into more of a seasonal thing, where we're already allowed to list the availability by season or time of the year for each thing that we label on the map. And what we're going to do now is we're going to try and adjust the map so that the map automatically filters out by month or by season, so that you don't have to dig through so hard trying to find specific things.
So that's a great resource, just to find what's out here if you don't know.
It's very easy to use. If you haven't seen it and you're interested, I would recommend taking a look.
And there'll be a link on our site as well as the talks and their talks later as well, so you can find that. So, any other questions about eating our landscape for our wonderful panelists? I'm sure they would all love to have you involved with whatever they're doing, and they'll be hanging out for a little while. So if you're too shy to talk in front of everybody, they'll be here to talk to one-on-one. So. Okay, well, thank you very much to our panelists for coming on.